Hey folks, Fernando doing a video for the Modern Survivalist, and this is going to be a video dedicated to radio. Now, a few things before I go on. Guys, radio, number one, this is not my thing. I'm not a radio guy. There's entire channels dedicated to radio. That's one of the things I love about survival and preparedness. It's so broad. There's, people that are experts in lots of different fields. This is definitely not mine. What I know about this is super limited, so this would be just a basic introduction so as to have at least the basic knowledge that I have. I'm going to be sharing with you here. It's not going to be a super long video. That says a lot of my knowledge in terms of radio. Number two, yes, there are legal restrictions, and I'm going to be explaining some of those here. Again, not my thing, so don't just take anything that I say for granted. Double check yourself. But yes, basically what it comes down to is that if you're going to be using a ham radio, you need a license. If you're going to be transmitting, right, that would be these guys, the very popular Baofeng UV5R. These are perfectly legal to buy. Yes, you can buy them, and I'm going to be leaving links if you want to get these. I'll leave links for some of the stuff that I have, and that I think that's kind of like a good idea to have, including the Baofeng UV5R. So again, perfectly legal for you to buy, and it's kind of like there's kind of this thing in the ham radio community that some old farts don't like the idea of this being so cheap that any average Joe can just go and buy it, and they're like the fuzz of the radio world. They don't want to have people spending. They don't like the idea of you buying this without any restrictions. They don't like the idea of this being cheap. They want this to be expensive and hard to get, and you have some super expensive and difficult license because they want to feel special. Kind of pathetic, just the way it is. Now, for us normal, non-crazy people, this is a pretty cool, valuable tool. Now, going back to the restrictions, yes, you need a ham radio license so as to transmit. Right? You can buy it perfectly legal, right? Let's get that out of the way. You can buy it and you can listen, right? You can turn this on, listen to whatever you want, not going to be a problem. You can listen, you can scan, you can listen to the police, fire department. That's one of the advantages. You can gather information with this quite easily. You cannot press the PTT button and actually transmit without a license, except if there's an emergency. If there's an emergency, it's perfectly legal for you to transmit without a license. Hey, I need help. I broke a leg. I'm stuck here. Yes, I had a problem with my car. Please help me. You can do that. That's why a lot of people have these in spite of not having a license, just in case they need it. You can, of course, also listen to weather radio, stay informed as to what's going on, gather, listen, not transmit, again, unless there's an actual emergency. Having said all that, let's go on. Having a radio is a pretty important part of your preparedness setup, even if it's really not your thing, which is my case. Even though it's not my field of expertise, I understand that if phones go down, if there's no TV, if there's no internet, I mean, we take so many things for granted, and I think these days, with everything going on, we kind of understood how we just accepted that you can just go out and about without worrying about breathing, and all of a sudden that's not as simple anymore, isn't it? Imagine if there's no internet and you cannot just sit in your desktop or your phone and check what's going on. If you couldn't do that, radio is a way in which you get intel, in which you gather information on what's happening around you in your local vicinity, in your community, in your country, even around the world if you have the right equipment. And yes, we'll get to that in a second. So FM radio, even something as simple as this is one of those typical cheapo emergency radio flashlight combo things. I just took this off. I had it just shelved over there. It was completely dead. With a couple minutes of using this thing, it was already alive again, and the LED was working, and more important, the radio was working. FM radio, as simple as it is, it's a great way of gathering intel, knowing what's happening around you. If there's a serious event, you're going to be getting piles of information through FM radio. You also have access to emergency weather channels and all that stuff. Yes, but even simple FM radio is valuable. My phone is there as well for a reason. My phone has FM radio capability as well, not through the internet, which is something that, especially in the United States, many companies continue to block the chip that allows you to use FM radio because they want you to use radio through their broadband service and consume those data points, right? And charge you for that. It's becoming more and more difficult to find a new phone which has unblocked FM. Mine, this is an LG G6, which does. I do need the headphones which are used as an antenna. Without the headphones, it asks me to connect them because it needs them to work as an antenna. But if I had headphones, I have FM radio, which is a pretty good thing. You're probably familiar with these, the typical walkie-talkies that you grew up with as a kid. Today, these are what you would call a PMR 446. That's personal mobile radio, and a PMR basically needs a couple things. First of all, it's going to be limited to a few channels. It is, I think, the one with the batteries. Star one, remove the battery because these do leak. These use like AAA batteries, so yes, remove the batteries from it. But you have limited to 8 channels. I think now they extended it to 16 channels, but it's going to be limited in the number of channels, right? 8, 16, and the power you have is a lot less. These work at 0.5 watts, and the antenna is non-removable. The antenna is fixed. So, kind of limited, but man, it is a walkie-talkie. You can actually communicate with other people, and if you don't have a license, this would be what you need, so as to actually talk with another group. If there's an emergency or bugging out and you have someone else in another car, this is the way in which you would be communicating with someone in the other car or another group. Within a limited range, it's going to be like 2 or 3 kilometers within sight, someone like that. It's nothing to write home about, but it does work, and it's fairly popular. And yes, you should have one of these, especially if you don't have a license, because with those, you will not be able to transmit for normal communication unless there's an actual emergency going on. Now, here is the favorite radio of the prepper, of the survivalist. Everyone agrees, get yourself a Baofeng UV5R. This is the more popular radio. I leave a couple of other options which I think are even better than this if you want to go with a little bit of a higher budget, but this is the classic survivalist ham radio. Works on ultra high frequency, very high frequency, and you can hack these things until you die. You can connect these with a USB to your computer, and you can program these. They do a bunch of stuff. Yes, you can also listen to FM radio. You can receive from your PMRs. You look up the frequency, you program it, you can receive from your PMR, but you will not be able to transmit yourself. So they can talk to you. If, for example, my son, he can talk to me through this. I cannot transmit myself. I cannot push the PTT button myself and talk back to him. But listen to him, that's perfectly legal, not a problem. That's why you should have some of these as well, especially if you're not planning on getting a license. And you can use the scan function, see what's happening in your local community with the fire department. Back in the day, I had one of these. I don't even know what happened to it, but I had one of these back in the day in Argentina, and I was listening to the police frequency. After a couple of days, I was so depressed of how many robberies, people shot, stabbed, dead, and whatnot, that I just stopped listening. But it was cool so as to listen and know what's happening out there, the kind of conversation they use, even if I don't have a license. Listening, you start learning how people communicate and such. So yeah, definitely get yourself one of these. They come with the thing for charging. One last thing before I finish this video is something that you don't hear a whole lot about, which is this other gadget. Also very cheap. Also, I'll leave a link there. But this is a world radio, which is basically a shortwave band radio. What this means is that these short waves transmit much better through the Earth's atmosphere. They just bounce, and you can reach halfway around the world. That's something that a lot of people actually don't know about. People think that radio is very limited. Depends on the waves. This thing, and it costs like 20, 30 bucks, I think that's what I paid, and I'll look right now in Amazon, but it's pretty affordable. This thing can receive signals from around the world. So if there's a apocalyptic end of the world situation where you don't even know what's happening, yes, with these things you find local stuff. With this, you listen halfway around the world. this is where it's also useful to know other languages, because you're going to be listening to people talking in Chinese, in Portuguese, and in Spanish. Maybe a British station, you're going to be understanding what's going on. But if you know more languages, that's even better, because it's cool to listen even further away. With a little bit of patience, you start scanning the different channels that you have. And yes, you have digital ones. This is pre-analog, but you have digital versions of this as well. This is what you will be using so as to gather information of, okay, is there someone else alive in the planet? Am I the last human left alive? And this is how you would know that sort of thing. Guys, I hope you enjoyed this little video of mine. Again, not my field of expertise by any means, but this is some of the basic stuff I know, and it's probably going to be putting you in the right track so as to continue doing more research and learning more stuff. Folks, that's all for now. See you on our next video. Have an awesome day.